Well, hey there, it's your old pal Keith from Wavetables.lol. That's Wavetables.lol, home of KRC Mathwaves, the world's largest collection of wavetables, single-cycle waveforms, and even some samples for all sorts of modern synthesizers, including our friend Korg Modwave native here. And what we're going to talk about today is a new collection, or several new collections, of wavetables in KRC Mathwaves. These are free to existing users of Mathwaves, so you can jump on over to the product page over in Gumroad, and you will find these as labeled the KRC Series collection wavetables. And I guess the question is, well, what are these? So, in the original KRC Mathwaves collection, a lot of the wavetables were created in the spectral domain, basically using an additive synthesis technique. And a lot of those are based on mathematical series of various types. And in fact, the common synthesizer waveforms that we know, like the sawtooth wave, right? Like, here's a regular old sawtooth down here. Sawtooth wave is essentially, a numeric series wave. Turn the right volume down, Keith. See, this as basically, eventually, he tried to say, this eventually decays to a sawtooth wave here. You can turn off our envelope and just hear it. The sawtooth wave itself is a numeric series waveform that you could consider just uses the natural numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It has every single harmonic in it, up to the Nyquist limit, and those harmonics fall off with a ratio of 1 over n, where n is the harmonic number. So the first harmonic is the full strength, the maximum volume. The second harmonic is half that. The third is a third. The fourth is a fourth, and on and on and on, out to, in this case, in a wavetable synthesizer, out to 1024 harmonics. Okay, and then the square wave is just the set of odd harmonics, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, etc., where the amplitude of the harmonics falls off in the same way. But there are a bunch of other interesting waveforms that can be created using different mathematical series. Like I have a whole video, and I've done a lot of talking over the course of my videos about Mathwaves, about the unique sound of the polygonal number series, my own slightly weird numerical series that is like the polygonal series, but slightly different. Waveforms like this, their harmonics are really spread out and also sort of irregular. And so I personally find that the various polygonal waveforms make a very interesting sound that's sort of supernaturally bell-like with the right kind of programming. My own numerical series, the KRC series, we might call it, makes very, very bell-like timbres. And then other mathematical series, we're actually just moving through this wavetable that's got several different numeric series in it. You can hear all sorts of different sort of bell-like, sort of metallic sounds. And I like exploring these types of sounds, and so I thought I would revisit them with some of my newer ideas. And I actually started with just this kind of random assortment of numerical series that are then sorted and packed into this wave table that you see here. I'll talk about where it's located in a second. This is part of a new collection that's called, as I said, the Series collection. And if you import these into Korg Modwave or Korg Multipoly, there are MW bundle and MP bundle versions of these for you, as well as Korg Wavetable versions. There's all the other versions too. There's like Wave for Serum and Vital. There's Faceplant's kind of special 256 frame Wave format, which I then compress to Slack to FLAC, the free lossless audio codec that Faceplant supports, and then a Wave version for Wave Edit. And then what else? Oh yeah, the WT versions for Surge XT and Bitwig. So anyway, it comes in all the different formats. But when you import them into Modwave or Multipoly, they're in a collection that's called KRC Series, and there's 3 of these. There's KRC Series 0. That's where you'll find this numeric Series 64 sorted wavetable, which is very pretty and sort of orchestral, actually. And then there's KRC M Series 1, and we'll get to there. And there's KRC M Series 2. And then there's also 2 additional kind of little bonusy things that are called, let's see, if they're down past my orchestral libraries. There's KRC, what is it? KRC PD series. So these are phase distortion based wavetables. And then also one called KRC Pulsen, Polsyn, which is based on a polygonal synthesis technique. These are not exactly mathematical series waveforms in the same way that I was just talking about most of the KRC Mathwaves wavetables, but they use a different algorithm. That's kind of interesting. I haven't really mastered yet. But anyway, that's what this collection is about. And so I started with just this kind of, let's just throw some random numerical series wavetables or waveforms into a wavetable. And I kind of liked this transition here where we're going from one of these numeric series waveforms back to the sawtooth wave. And I was like, that would be kind of an interesting set of wavetables to do, where instead of like a whole bunch of different waveforms, that we just went from, say, like one interesting numerical series down to, say, the sawtooth wave or the sine wave or the square wave. And so there's a whole bunch of different ideas explored in here. Let's go, I don't know, these aren't that different. These are brand new, so I haven't done a lot of programming with these. Let's turn off that modulation on the windowed sync, shall we? So there's a collection, I think these are in M0. Yeah, these are in M Series 1. Let's go back to M Series 0 real quick. Let's see here, KRC M Series 0. So in M Series 0, we have a bunch of wavetables that are constructed with 3 mathematical series, and so they're named like Saw, Bell, Tri. So this wavetable goes from the sawtooth wave at the bottom to the Bell series waveform to the triangular number series waveform at the top. And these have a spectral morph in them, actually. Let's just listen to this guy by himself. Let's see, let's put this like this. We'll do the envelope. There's our filter a bit. I think that's quite interesting. And of course, you can go the other way as well. My point. So there it goes from like a synth to kind of a belly organ sort of thing. My point about these being spectrally morphed is that there are 64 frames in each of these wavetables. And we're not doing like the time linear morph that something like Modwave would do between a sparse wavetable, but we're actually linearly interpolating every single harmonic so that the wave shapes move in kind of a truer way to what the math is actually dictating. And so you'll find just all sorts of different variations in M Series 0, with where we go from the sawtooth. I think it's just the sawtooth. Is it the square here? No, it's the sawtooth or the square, to different random mathematical series. So let's maybe speed this up. Let's see here. Let's go like this. Change our OS1 envelope here. Oops, I'm looking for OS2 envelope. Just mess up the patch, Keith. And of course, you don't have to sweep these. One thing that I think is very useful about these types of waveforms is that we can morph from the sawtooth wave to the Catalan series if we just stay below the halfway point here, right? And so we can get all sorts of interesting different sawtooth waves that have, little harmonic jiggity-jaggities in them that sort of have different properties. Just trying to get my sustain up here a little bit. And that you could use as a replacement for the standard sawtooth wave, yeah? And then from the halfway point, that's the sound of the Catalan series waveform, and it morphs up into an octagonal polygonal waveform. And so you can get these kind of shifting bell timbres with this. You hear how the attack changes subtly. And sometimes they're going to be kind of pure and pretty, and sometimes they'll be a little dissonant. There's all sorts of different wavetables in here. I believe there are 200 of these, maybe 400. Let's look. We've got not performances. We want wavetables. Let's see. KRC M Series 0. Yeah, there's 202 wavetables here. So there's these there are these two numeric series ones. I'll show this other wavetable. Let's listen to it real quick. Oh, it's not going to get selected in there. Oh boy. Let's go back to edit mode. I hate how that doesn't work, actually. There's also a very strange version of this multi-numeric series wavetable where it morphs down to these stride series things that really just make the stride series, if we take out the fundamental, just makes kind of multiple octaves of saws. That this was almost like an accident, basically. But I was like, well, someone might find this interesting. It's sort of a little effect patch. I don't know. That could be like a dub siren or something. It's kind of a weird wavetable. Anyway, that sometimes we just leave accidents in, huh? Anyway, there's all sorts of different 3 waveform wavetables. That they're based on 3 waveforms, but they spectrally morph between those to get very smooth transitions. Let's go up a couple octaves, shall we? So there's a lot of neat things you can do with those. So that's M Series 0. Let's just go to M Series 1 now. One thing that I had showed in my polygonal waveforms redux video. There'll be a link somewhere, either in the description or near my head. There's always links in the description, right? I think you know this. If you watch my channel, you know there's links in the description. They're all down there. Everything I talk about, I put a link to. So in that polygonal waveforms redux video, excuse me, it's drink time. In that video, I had talked about if we change the exponent on the harmonic fall off. So instead of letting harmonics fall off with a 1/n ratio, what if we put an exponent on n? The standard exponent would be 1. N to the 1 is just n. But if we reduce that exponent, what'll happen is that the waveforms become sharper. And with the numeric series waveforms, this kind of tends to bring out more brightness than they would have otherwise. And with the sawtooth and the square wave, it makes them more nasal. They get these weird little peaks in them, and they don't become any brighter, right? But they become more constricted sounding, which is kind of weird because all of the harmonics are actually louder, but it seems like they sort of compete with each other, and they create these, interesting variations on the typical sawtooth and square wave sound. And so this collection in M Series 1 is again like 3 waveform wavetables that, start with a saw or a square and then move to 2 other different arithmetical series waveforms. But we've changed the harmonic fall off, the amplitude fall off exponent. So in this case, we've got a fall off of 1.71. So these are just randomized between like 0.5 and 2. And at 1.71 here, as we move out closer to 2, the waveforms get more rounded and softer. It's as if they've been run through a low-pass filter already. So you can see that like this guy down here is the sawtooth wave, but it doesn't look like the traditional sawtooth wave. It's all roundy here, and so it has this kind of sound. A lot softer, right? And so these are just constructed in that way, where whatever waveforms we have, they're a little bit rounded off. And there's a lot of different variations. See, here's one where the fall off is almost 0.5, and now our sawtooth wave is very, very nasal and buzzy. And in fact, it even feels like it loses, this is a pretty extreme change here. It almost loses some of its amplitude, right? It's like, it's a little quieter. But you can hear how this Bell Series waveform, it's nice and bright because of that change to the harmonic fall off. And then this actually moves toward the odd series waveform, which is actually just the square wave. If we take all the odd harmonics, we're actually at the square wave. So you could call different waveforms different things, just, depending on how you were thinking about them. So this is that you can hear that it only has odd harmonics, and it's probably a little low for you. But it's like a nasal square wave. So anyway, those could be interesting mixed together in various combinations, right? And you can also use these, to just explore, one single waveform, right? So if you put the position up at the max, you're going to get, whatever the waveform is in the third position. So this is the hexagonal wave. And then in the middle, you're going to have the Catalan wave. And then down here, you're going to have the saw, right? I guess we could listen to what some of these other ones sound like. So this one's very rolled off. And let's see here. Here's the Fibonacci series. The saw to the Fibonacci to the C-tri is centered triangular. The centered polygonal waveforms is slightly different numeric series than the polygonal waveforms themselves, but also have this very bell-like timbre, supernaturally bell-like, as I say. So this is just a very different way to get to these various type of series waveforms than you had previously in the original Mathwaves collection. change our filter a bit. That's too much resonance. You darn MS-20 filter. And so, of course, all these kind of glassy wavetable sounds that we associate with wavetable synthesis do sound great when you do things like the Vintage 8 and Vintage 12 modes. Gives you those old wavetable synth vibes. Vintage 12 is a little less pronounced. And I think in this collection, are there 400 or 200 wavetables? Let's see. M Series 1. This is 400, so I kind of ran this randomization twice just to give you a lot of different wavetable options. There are, of course, ones that start with the square wave. Let's go find those maybe. Those will be at the bottom here since we're... So we land at the square wave, again rounded off by various, the exponent on the harmonic falloff. This one's interesting. So we've got the natural series at the top here, and that's the sawtooth wave. And then in the middle, we've got a KRC series, my own weird hyperbell numeric series, and then we're going to end with the square wave. It's kind of interesting in wavetables like this just to pick out a waveform and not sweep. We could do the same thing back toward the saw. So there's the sawtooth wave that has all this extra harmonic stuff going on in it. And, you know, with a harmonically rich waveform like that, right, we're going to use some sort of filtering probably. So it's kind of cool. I mean, it sounds like a sawtooth wave, but it starts out with kind of all this extra high frequency energy. Or we could go, you know, we could go much more closer to the saw. Anyway, you get the idea behind that. There's also ones that end with the sine wave in this collection, which these can be kind of neat. Now here's a very mild wavetable. But this might be interesting as an FM source, yeah? Or an FM modulator. SQN up here at the top, that would be a square polygonal waveform, you know, four-sided, not the square wave. And it goes through a rounded sawtooth wave, and then finally just down to the single harmonic, the sine wave. You know, we might do something like this, like traverse the wavetable a bit more, maybe make this more pad-like, eh? Cool stuff, right? So you get 400 of those. Let's see, where else are we? There's M Series 2. M Series 2 takes that same idea of let's take let's take some random numeric series and standard synthesizer waveforms, put them together in a spectrally morphed wavetable. But then each individual waveform has its own customized fall-off. And so in these wavetables, instead of it just saying F and some number, it says FA, and the number FA stands for fall-off average. And so the number that you see is the average of the three fall-offs that we computed for that waveform. And so these are more complicated. You can see that, like, with this, let's change this back, shall we? Oops. That's what here we go. You can see that we go to that, like, really narrow, nasally sawtooth wave. But then our Catalan wave, this looks like it's rolled off a little bit. And it looks like this one, the KRC 3, is actually a little brightened. So it has like a low fall-off number. And this just gives you like a lot of different variety with these. There's a lot of shifty timbres. Let's maybe make our filter not so present. This one sounds like it might be cool to go this way and sweep it very slowly backward. There are some kind of interesting surprises in here. I did some new to us. Some new numeric series. I'm trying to find if there's is there a Lucas in here? I thought this was a pretty interesting waveform. So the one at the end here is the Lucas series, and of course it's been rounded off in some way. Let's also take off our vintage mode. Anyway, the Lucas, in its true form, where it's not rounded off, it's kind of already sounding like a, and we're not listening to it right now, but it sounds to me like actually one of those hybrid sawtooth waves that you might find in the middle of these wavetables. So it's kind of an interesting series. It's easier to explore that, not in this collection where you've got these random fall-offs happening, but in Series 1. Or maybe it's Series 0. It's really, it's hard to name these things, right? Now, keep in mind, I know there's going to be people who are like, well, why are you on the bells again and stuff? Like, you don't have to use these wavetables like this way. I'm sweeping them so that you can hear what they sound like, right, across the wavetable. But the idea here is just to generate some new and interesting hybrid waveforms that you can use in a lot of different ways. Fat fingers. All right, so that was the M Series 2. Now here is an even simpler set of wavetables. So this is a KRC M Series Saw / Square. And so this is just two arithmetic series waveforms, right? So either a sawtooth or a square wave, and then some other numeric series. And so here's one that's the abundant numbers series. Again, there's no messing around with the fall-off here. All the fall-offs here are 1 over n. These are pretty cool because they're just nice and simple. So you can really dial in these little differences. Let's just, listen to the halfway point here. So this is the mix of the sawtooth wave and the abundant number series. It's just a nice bright sawtooth wave, right? That, this would sound cool, like if we copied it and we put it in the other oscillator, right? And then let's change our tuning on this one a little bit. The classic detuned sawtooth sound with a little something extra. Let's change the brightness on this one so that it morphs back to the sawtooth wave, huh? And then with our aggressive V filter on it, what happens? Turn on our ARP and see what happens. Filter face. Go get another one of these. Where'd you go? KRC M Series Saw Square. Factorial numbers are kind of interesting sounding. So this is an interesting one, right? Because the numeric series that we've randomly generated here is the odd harmonic series. That's just the square wave, right? So this is a nice wavetable that's like this cool hybrid saw square that you've got a lot of control over. I mean, since it's squarish, we could probably use a little bit of stretch here to simulate PWM on this guy. Jumping all over the place. Anyway, it's like they're tools for doing nifty stuff like this. Okay, so that's all of the M series thing. I'm going to take a short little break, and then we'll look at the two wavetable types that are in here. So these polysyn or pulsen, I guess I called them, There's a lot of polys already in the collection, right? So we've got polygonal waveforms and, lots of variations on the polygonal waveforms, and the word poly probably shows up quite a bit. So I just abbreviated this to POL. But we'll look at those, and then we'll also look at these phase distortion series wavetables. Both are kind of interesting. And I'm back. Did you miss me? Here's a little bit more complete patch. Now this is using one of these M Series 2 wavetables, where we're going from a sine to the tetrahedral wave to the triangular polygonal waveform. And that's giving us that glass texture. I've got it in Vintage 8 mode. But there's another waveform type that's over here in Oscillator 1. And this wavetable sounds like this. You can hear it kind of has this volume swell, because at the middle position, we basically are going through like almost a flat line, right, as this wavetable morphs. And this is one of the PD, the phase distortion wavetables. So over here, let's go to our browser. In the collection called KRC PD Series, we have phase distortion waveforms, like the Casio CZ101 type waveforms that I talked about in a previous video. There'll be a link somewhere. The PD series waveforms actually use the numeric series in a different way. Instead of just like using the numbers as like the harmonics that are present in the waveform, I'm actually using the cumulative sum of these arithmetic series as a phase angle to change the phase readout of a sine wave. And some of these came out like very interesting. Some came out very boring. But this technique I called phase distortion cubic. And it's cubic because I had to increase the values. So like I cubed these cumulative sums and then use that as the phase angle. So you get, an interesting waveform like this, which is really cool. This is using the Power of 5 series as our phase angle changer. But you can also get more drastic changes. So here's the Power of 3 waveform. That's pretty cool. Power 2. So these are more buzzy, right? The numeric series are not making a bell-like tone. It's maybe a little bit because there's so many jaggies up in here, but these are a very different style of waveform, and these wavetables, morph in this phase distortion way. So like we could turn off our filter, and because they basically decay back to that original sine wave, I'll rotate the phase here so you can kind of see some other stuff that's going on. They eventually decay just to what's essentially a pure sine wave. So you don't need to use a filter if you don't want to. You could do like Casio style, no filter sort of patches with these if you wanted to. But they respond beautifully to filters as well. Now, some of them are duds. Actually, and then sometimes I was hoping this one would be a dud. There are some numeric series that are smaller, that like don't go up real high, real fast, like the natural series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like the odd number series, and even like the prime number series. They don't they don't get very big very fast. And so there are a few wavetables in here where essentially you've got a sine wave at both ends of the wavetable. Just in the interest of time, I didn't filter those out. I may go back and kind of adjust my algorithm a bit so that we could actually hear the sound of those less explosive numeric series and how we might use them in phase distortion. But for now, that's just, I'm leaving that as a to-do. The pentagonal numbers here make this very interesting, kind of stair-steppy wavetable. It's like we took a sawtooth wave and we put stair steps in it instead of a smooth ramp. And a lot of those series do similar things. We'll see another couple of them. I don't have time to run through all these. Yeah, here's one of the duds. So like, you can see that actually, I mean, it is a little different. So down here, we've got this sine wave, and it looks like this does change its shape a little bit to me, but maybe that's just the perspective of the waveform view. Anyway, it's maybe an alternative sine wave up here. Here's another one of these stair-steppy ones. Let's turn our envelope back on. So super neat alternatives, right? To your regular sawtooth wave. Like if we go up here, select like this guy. Pretty interesting. And then at maximum more up here at the top. Well, that's just generally a weird-ass waveform, isn't it? Very synthy and interesting sounding. So that's the octagonal one, and here's the what is it? Nonagon, 9-sided polygon. See, it starts to get more smooth, but it's still got the little stair steps in it. There's just a lot of neat stuff. Oh, here's one that based on the Lucas or Lukash series. This is a pretty interesting jaggy waveform. Turn back in our second oscillator, huh? Maybe we should just select something different at random here. Oops. Let's stay in these new collections, Keith. Let's grab, let's see, I don't know. How about this one? I like how there's that little bit of like a metal hit kind of sound that you get from the top end of this wavetable. You can hear it in the lower registers. All right, I also want to look at these in Multipoly. And I had, by the way, wanted to show these in Serum 2. But when I went to load Serum 2 today, it said, oh, there's an update available. And I snagged that update. And I'm going to have to report this because it looks to me like there's actually a bug in user wavetable import, user wavetable import in the latest version of Serum 2. Because some of these wavetables did not come across okay. And all these wavetables are actually, are based on the same like wave format files. Like they start there and I import them to the different synths. So I usually import to Modwave first, export a bundle from that, export Korg wavetables from that, bring them into Multipoly, export a Multipoly bundle, and then I've got a script that handles the conversion to like wave edit and phase plant and the WT format. And so, they should sound the same everywhere. but I'm finding that there's some sort of weird phase reading thing that's going on in Serum 2 with some of the user wavetables right now. And I've checked the actual wave files themselves, and there's nothing wrong with them. So there's a little bug in Serum 2 right now, which is kind of a bummer. But I did confirm that the same wave files that you would use with Serum 2, that they import correctly into Pigments right now. So there's no problem with the source files. So Serum 2 users of Mathwaves, I'm sorry, you might be getting some weirdness when you import user wavetables if you're on the latest version. Anyway, I'm just complaining. The other thing that kind of chapped my ass this week is Cherry Audio makes some great products and things, but I found it annoying 2 days ago that there were easily, I don't know, it felt like there were a couple of dozen day one drop videos about their WASP emulation, that, what do they call it? Yellow Jacket. I mean, look, it's a $49 synth. Did 36 people really need to give a first impressions review of a thing like that? I don't know. I don't know. I just found that wow, that's just really goofy. And also, what's the market for an instrument like that, right? Why you gave it away for free to probably the entire addressable user market for that synth? I get, okay, fine. I don't know. SynthTube is weird, right? All right, let's get Multipoly going. Gonna have to remember to make an edit here, aren't I? Because you don't want to just see me firing up Multipoly negative. I'm being negative. Multipoly native. There we go. Oops, I got to change my audio. Okay. Let's see. Audio MIDI settings. Go to the recording interface, guy. There we go. Okay. So we're back in Multipoly. So these same wavetables have been imported to Multipoly, so we can use them with this ridiculously great sounding synthesizer, right? And let's see, did I do some kind of variations on these? Yeah, I guess we could just take a listen through some of these. So that's that original kind of random numeric series sorted wavetable that we've got in two oscillators here. Slightly different variation on it. Let's see, I did make some other things. So here's just a one oscillator patch. This is not like a finished patch, but we're just listening to the sound of this square Lucas morph in just one of the digital oscillators. I think this is a really interesting waveform. It's sort of bell-like, but it's also sort of has a little bit of a sawtooth wavy character to it that you can just barely hear. And so, here, down here, we have something that's very square wavy going on, but it's just got that little extra oomph. And I do love the sound of the SEMP filter on these. That's right, we got to get to the polysyn waveforms too, right? Let's see. Doot. So just a combination here. Square pentatope. So the pentatope is a series I hadn't done before. So a pentatope is like a polyhedron, but it's the 5 polyhedron number spatial. Anyway, that's what that is. And then we got the square Lucas morph over here, and we got the square pentatope waveform over here. And it's kind of a neat almost an FM kind of bassy sound. The other thing that's going on in this is ring modded. So I've got ring mod from oscillator 1 to 2. And then we're just listening to the output of the ring mod. So you've got the oscillators turned down in the mixer. I could bring it back in. So now we've got those plus the ring modulator. So these wavetables, like all of my wavetables, like it can be used in a lot of different ways, and their core sound can be changed quite drastically by synthesis, right? But you probably knew that already. It's kind of a keyboardy type of sound, again, just with 2 oscillators. And this is, again, using ring mod, but so you got ring mod on 1 to 2, but we have the oscillators turned up in the mixer, and then we're just blending in a little bit of ring mod. Again, this is, I guess, kind of an FM-y sounding thing. And, you know, as I'm always saying, like once you have a patch like this set up, if you then just go, let's see, we're going to stay in the M Series Saw square, you can just swap out a similar, oh, this is a really weird one. You can just swap out like any other, you know, same family wavetable and get, you know, a nice little change to the sound. Let's go up here. Oops, this one's not being filtered. Well, it's not being filtered anymore, Keith, because you clicked the little filter button. So you screwed that up good. Let's see, M Series, we want M Series Saw square. Let's try some of these. Come on. Do it. Turn off the filter. Turn the filter back on. Here we go. How's this sound? It's square to square. Huh. I do like these saw ones, you know, so the saw up to the heptagonal number, it sounds really cool right in here. It just gives a nice extra brightness that kind of sounds like, it kind of makes it sound like our filter is a slightly brighter type of filter. Kind of neat stuff there. Oh. This heptagonal waveform sounded very vibraphony to me. So why not modulate the amp a little bit, right, with its LFO and give us kind of a fake vibraphone effect. not a finished patch there. Okay, there's one more type of waveform collection in here, and these are the pulsen, or it's short for like polygonal synthesis, right? These pulsen waveforms use. I was going to show the paper. There'll be links in the description, of course. There's this is from what? I think about 2013 or 2016 or something like that. I don't see the date on it now. But these cats did this paper called Continuous Order Polygonal Waveform Synthesis. And they give the equations for this kind of interesting synthesis method that relies on polygons. And I think there are some hardware and software instruments that try to implement this technique. I did a version of this in Python that I could use to make wavetables. And they have a very interesting sound. I was not able to get this algorithm to do like the spiky stuff. Clearly I'm doing something wrong in the math, but they're still pretty interesting. They have all these little wibbles in them, and some of them can sound, a little bit like the Morley wavelet wavetables from KRC Mathwaves. And they have that look to them, that like sinusoidal look, and they respond really well to like different morph types. So here's the mirror morph being used in this one, and see this waveform now is very much like a Morley wavelet. But there's really cool little like resonance changes that happen when you do that, and there's a whole bunch of these waveforms again in the KRC Pulsen, where is it? Pulsen collection. There is some variety to them. They're not all like crazy wibbly like that. Let's turn off our morph. So this wavetable is almost like a triangle wave all over, but you can see it's got these kind of straight edges. So it's if I turn down oscillator 1, very much like the triangle wave. And then it'll also go to this type of waveform. This is actually a lot what the square wave looks like when you change the fall off exponent to be lower than 1. It gets kind of pointy like this. And so this is sort of reminiscent of that sound. I wasn't able to get a huge amount of variety out of this algorithm, but it is interesting. I guess there's one that kind of does the little spikes. It's all about tuning the parameters, I suppose. But so in addition to these kind of triangular looking things, you get these very resonant looking ones too. Anyway, they have a really interesting sound to them. They're also kind of similar to some of the stuff that you can get out of the wave shaper. Anytime you have little wibbles like this, that's going to sound like a resonance. This one's kind of neat because the resonance goes away. So now that one sounds like a sine wave, but let's see. What is this being controlled by? Filter B envelope. Let's take filter B. Let's see. We gotta go negative. There we go. That's kind of neat. You can modulate that even deeper. Oh, interesting. That's too long of a decay. probably sound good ring modded, wouldn't they? What happens if we just change our mixer, take the original oscillators out, and just listen to the ring? So there you go. The pulsen wavetables. I'm going to work on that algorithm more. So you'll probably see more of these in the future. Hopefully with a little more variety in them. Let's see, what was this one? Oh, it was super wibbly. Kind of a cool keys patch. Okay, so KRC Series collection of wavetables in Mathwaves. Series collection will be down at the bottom of each section. KRC Mathwaves. Hey, visit wavetables.lol for a whole bunch of other stuff, including the KRC Mathwaves free sampler, which doesn't contain any of these particular wavetables, but has more than 1,600 wavetables to kind of get you started and maybe wet your whistle for the whole product. Don't forget I have 90 patches for Korg Multipoly up here. These are just $5. And then also my huge library of orchestral wavetables, which is something that version 2 is going to be coming of this. But this product is also $5 for 36,000 wavetables that are based off of extracting the timbre of an open source orchestral library. They're super interesting, very different from Mathwaves. And then, of course, your classic Mathwaves, which you can get for $20. It's $29. But if you use code Sandra, there'll be links in the description. You can get it for just $20. So anyway, have fun, stop in, get some wavetables. You go complain about SynthTube. That's something I like to do. Have a great day. It's your old pal Keith from Wavetables.lol signing off, and I will talk to you later.